Mass combat, the scenario by which you have a large-scale battle between hordes or even small armies of people. This is something that in RPGs I usually try to shy away from, since it robs too many players of their agency. However, Exalted 3rd Edition seems to do this scenario justice, and also Naval Combat as well. Mass Combat in Exalted 3rd Edition uses its base combat engine as a starting point, so if you don't know that, go back and get a grip on small-scale combat first. You got it? Good. Let's move on then. For larger scale battles, Exalted uses what they refer to as battle groups. A battle group is several similar combatants that are treated as one character. It's also important to note that most battle groups are going to consist of either ordinary mortals or mostly low-powered supernatural creatures. This is because the abilities and attributes of a battle group are going to be equal to those of the average member of said battle group. Battle groups also have a few extra special attributes: size, drill, might, and magnitude. Size is a rating of how many members there are in the battle group. Drill is the training of that battle group, at least as they have as working as a team. Might is a rating of how supernaturally gifted they are, and magnitude replaces their health track. The size of a battle group is measured on a scale of 0 to 5, and is the biggest contributing factor to the overall power of a battle group. The size rating is added to attack rolls, raw damage, soak, and magnitude. Additionally, when a battle group's magnitude track is filled with damage, it is possible that it can reduce its size by 1 and have a completely renewed magnitude, but I'll cover that in more detail later. The drawback to size is that it requires a lot of people to increase the size of a battle group. A size rating of 0 means that a battle group has probably been defeated, there's only 1 or 2 people left, or you're probably better off representing them as individual characters. Size 1 represents about 10 people, Size 2 represents about 50, Size 3 is about 100, Size 4 is about 400, and Size 5 is about 1,000. If you somehow need more than a Size 5 battle group, at that point, you're probably better off breaking them up into 2 smaller battle groups. Drill is a measure of how much the members of the battle group have trained together, and has 3 ratings: poor, average, and elite. The drill attribute affects how easy it is for a character leading the battle group to give it orders, or for any other forces fighting it to rout the battle group. Poor represents characters with no training in fighting together. Something like an unruly mob, a group of thugs that don't coordinate their actions, an army of conscripted peasants, or even a horde of zombies. Trying to give orders to or to rally a battle group with poor drill gives the roll a -2 penalty to do so, and the difficulty of any rout or rally rolls that the battle group makes are raised by 1. Average drill represents a battle group that regularly fights and trains together, such as most standing armies, bands of mercenaries, or caravan guard details. They don't have any penalties or bonuses for rallying and giving orders, and in fact, they get a +1 bonus to their defense. Elite drill battle groups, though, are very rare, and are most likely groups that have been in countless battles together, spent even more time training together, and probably even spend their every waking moment around one another. A religious order of knights or the most competent band of mercenaries in all creation will fall into this group. Rolls to give orders to such a battle group get a +2 bonus, and they also get a +2 bonus to their defense as well. Might is a rare attribute for a battle group to have, since it represents supernatural powers present to everybody in the battle group, and it's rated on a scale of 0 to 3. Might 0 represents ordinary mortals. They have no bonuses and no supernatural abilities. Might 1 represents beings with some supernatural influence, such as beast folk, people mutated by the wild, or those with some divine blessing. This grants the battle group a +1 to damage, accuracy, and defense. Might 2 is possessed by things such as demons, ghosts, and the fair folk. This grants +2 to damage and accuracy, as well as a +1 to defense. Might 3, however, is the realm of Exalted. This rating exists mostly as a theoretical concept, since it is very unlikely enough Exalted will ever band together to require being represented by a battle group. At this point, you're probably just better off representing them as individual characters. If, against better judgment, you need to represent an army Exalted, and to thus grant a battle group a might of 3, this grants them a +3 to damage and accuracy, as well as a +2 to defense. As I said at the start of the video, large-scale combat in Exalted uses the base rules for combat at its core, meaning that despite the additional attributes they have, they're mostly treated like an ordinary combatant, with a few additional abilities and exceptions, of course. First, battle groups can only make withering attacks, and they do not gain initiative from a successful attack. Any initiative they would gain is simply lost to the ether. Anybody in Initiative Crash that is attacked by a battle group, instead of losing further initiative and going into the negatives, they'll instead take that damage to their health track. Battle groups, thankfully though, do not get double successes when rolling 10s on damage rolls. Attacks resolve as normal if one battle group is attacking another battle group, but if a battle group is attacking an individual, then that attack affects everybody in contact with the battle group, regardless of if they're a friend or an enemy. Battle groups have an initiative rating, but it doesn't change. It only serves the purpose of determining when it acts. Successful withering attacks against the battle group only grant 1 point of initiative, but any damage they take is applied directly to their magnitude from these attacks. Meanwhile, decisive attacks also directly damage magnitude, but they deal an additional point of damage for each 4 dice of initiative. Damage dealt to magnitude doesn't necessarily represent everybody in the battle group being slain though. Certainly some members may wind up dying, but those that aren't killed are filled with fear that they'll be next, making them less willing to keep fighting. And this thematically leads into what happens when a battle group's magnitude track is filled up. They are then forced to make a rout roll. This roll is made using the willpower of the battle group, which would be the average willpower of its members of the group. This roll is also modified based on the drill attribute of the battle group, as well as the situations from the chart on page 209. If a battle group succeeds in the rout roll, they reduce their size by 1 and replenish their magnitude track. If they fail though, their next turn they suffer dissolution. Everybody in the group either runs or drops their weapons and surrenders. Additionally, if an individual character causes dissolution to happen, they gain the benefits of initiative break. The end result of all these differences regarding battle groups and normal combatants comes down to this. Battle groups hit harder, they're easier to damage, but they can also take more damage. Battle groups are GM controlled, even if they're allied with or owned by a player character. There are still ways that player characters can influence what a battle group does through command actions. There's a few conditions that need to be met before command actions can be used, and they're fairly basic. A character first needs to have some kind of authority over the battle group, like the boss of a gang or an appointed general. Second, they need some way to communicate their orders to the battle group, such as being able to shout orders to their subordinates, or being able to relay messages with visual signals, or even using magic. Command actions fall into one of 3 categories: order, rally, or rally for numbers. Order commands have 2 simultaneous effects. It allows a character to decide the next action of the battle group, and grants a bonus to that battle group's next action, based on how many successes that roll gets. The roll for order uses either intelligence, charisma, or appearance, depending on how the order is being issued, and war against a difficulty of 1. Intelligence is used if the character is issuing commands away from the battle lines. Charisma is used by characters on the front lines giving speeches and shouting commands. Appearance is used when a character is leading a battle group by example and heading a charge. The command to rally can be used when a battle group fails a rout roll, but hasn't dissolved yet. Unlike order, this can only be used with either charisma or appearance, and war. Rally is against the same difficulty as the rout roll that the battle group failed, though a success here allows the battle group to recover as if they succeeded on that rout roll. Rally for numbers, by contrast, is used more preemptively. By making a roll of charisma or appearance and war, a character can restore some of the battle group's lost magnitude. The amount of magnitude recovered is half the success on the roll, and this can only be done once per battle. However, losing a point of size resets this limit. Rally for numbers is also not able to grant more than a group's maximum magnitude, or restore lost size. You can't normally raise the dead with a rousing speech. There's 2 final considerations regarding battle groups that are worth noting. The first is a fringe case called perfect morale. A battle group with perfect morale is one completely incapable of fear. They succeed in all rout checks and get a +3 bonus to their magnitude. They also possess the drawback that they cannot rally for numbers. Perfect morale exists primarily for making battle groups of mindless undead, though it could also represent an army of autonomous soldiers powered by clockwork. The second is the very loosely defined slaughter action. When a battle group is dissolved, it still exists. Their soldiers are just now surrendering or running away in abject terror. Slaughter is attacking an already defeated battle group to further dwindle their numbers. Otherwise, they might regroup and come back months later. The rules for slaughter are pretty much make an attack roll and the GM makes something up. I'm not joking. Read it for yourself if you don't believe me. Compared to battle groups, strategic warfare is a much simpler affair, though it still requires an understanding of battle groups to use. First, the strategic leader for each side in a battle decides what stratagem they want to use, basically what conditions they want to impose on the enemy in the incoming battle. Then, both sides make an opposed intelligence and war roll, modified by a rather long list of conditions found on page 212. Page 212 also includes a list of possible stratagems, along with the threshold for the amount of successes over your enemy you need to achieve in order to impose those effects. If neither side is able to achieve more successes as well as a net amount of successes equal to their threshold, then the coming battle ensues without any stratagems being employed. After that, it's a matter of setting up the battle using battle groups and carrying it out using the combat rules. Naval combat follows a similar idea to strategic warfare, though it's a somewhat more drawn-out process. Much like strategic warfare, all parties involved in naval combat decide upon a stratagem and roll for it, with whomever rolls higher succeeding. Where it differs, though, is that all stratagems in naval combat have a momentum cost that need to be paid before they can be used. The exception being the positioning stratagem, which is how you gain momentum. When positioning is used, the user's ship gains 1 momentum for each success higher than their opponent. I won't list all the stratagems available, but there's a list of them starting on page 245. The boarding stratagems are what bring this full circle, though, since the most reliable way to fight another ship if you don't have any weapons for that task is to get close and pit your crew against theirs. And since most ships in Exalted have enough space to store at least a size 1 battle group, after a ship has been boarded, you simply treat the rest like a ground battle. Those are the basics of large-scale ground combat, as well as ground and sea warfare in Exalted. Normally, these aspects of games are the ones I shy away from, since they're usually too different from the combat rules of the game in question, or require far more preparation than their small-scale counterparts. Exalted seems to break that mold a little bit, and given some of the modifiers for strategic warfare, it lends itself quite well to sessions or even campaigns revolving around large-scale battles. A session could start with information gathering and other acts of espionage such as sabotage, followed by the warfare role, and ending with a large-scale battle, with one side, of course, having a few demigods on their side. Or battle groups could just be used as a way to shake up the kinds of threats the heroes are facing. A handful of zombies is one thing, but a horde of dozens of them is a different challenge altogether. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, give me one of those thumbs up. And if you have some other subject you'd like for me to talk about, be it for Exalted or some other game, feel free to leave that in the comments below. There was a few details I did leave out of this guide, so remember, videos on the internet are not a substitute for reading your rulebook. With all that said, I am Exalted, and I will see you all next time.